My name is David Simpson. I'd like to recognize my chief supporter, my wife of 30 years, Susan Simpson. She's my best friend. God has given us 7 children, 3 grandsons, and we live in Longview. But my family came here to Texas in the mid-1800s, and we settled in the little town of Avenger. And I like to tell people, if we know where Avenger is, we know where Cut Hand is, and a lot of other places like Beardstown. My family has been involved in manufacturing and farming here in East Texas, and in one way, or living there in the town of Avenger ever since then. I currently serve in the Texas House. This is my 3rd term. I'm a constitutional conservative Republican. I believe in liberty and limited government. As I've campaigned all 16 counties, I look people in the eyes at their doors and say to them, if you haven't harmed your neighbor, the government shouldn't be in the way. And again and again and again, I get amens. There you go. That's what I believe. My name is David Simpson, and I still believe in liberty and limited government.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you this evening. Joining me is my wife of 29 years, Jane. We have 3 grown daughters. The youngest is a senior at Texas A&M University, majoring in education. I was born and raised in Woodville, Texas. My dad was a state trooper. Went to Texas A&M University, and on the 3rd day of May 1980, I raised my right hand and took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and I've done so all of my adult life. I currently serve as the General United States Army Forces Command in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I commanded a combat brigade in Iraq in 2004, 2005, 4,000 Texas soldiers. Commanded an infantry division of about 16,000 soldiers, and was Deputy Command General, 1st United States Army. As a National Guardsman, I've done that and supported both the Texas and the United States Constitution my entire life. I'm a small businessman. I own a small company in Tyler, Texas, a water utility company. And I believe that small business is a key to the economy of this great state. I spent 9 years on a school board in Glendale, Texas, president for 6 of those years. I think there are 3 major issues that we'll get to talk about tonight. The first of those for me is obviously public education. We'll spend some time talking about that. Economic development. I chair an economic development corporation. I believe that the economy is the key with low taxes to the revenue for this state. And the other is the protection of your land rights and your water rights in this district. And we'll get to talk about that in just a little bit. I believe in Texas, and I believe in East Texas, and I think we're poised for greatness. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to run for this job. And I want to thank you for being involved in this process. It is the fabric of our nation. And only by being involved do we create a better state and a better nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Mike Lee.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank this body for doing things right as it should be. It was age before beauty. My name is Mike Lee. I'm a retired Navy hovercraft pilot. I'm going to take your word that there's somebody actually out there, except, other than the guy down here, because we really can't see you. I spent 20 years in the United States Navy. I'm a combat veteran. I was proud of my service. Right now, I own Queen City Funeral Home. I own a national photography company called Angel Shots Photography, where I have a contract with the nation's largest retailer. But something I'm really proud of is some other things that my wife and I have been able to do, things that we're passionate about as Republicans. One was we started an organization called Save the Babies. And as a professional speaker, I travel all around the nation, and I speak out about what I consider the genocide called abortion. I speak out and talk to groups about what it is, what it does, what it means, how vast it is, and what it means to save our children. We have another organization that we started called Heaven Sent. As a funeral home owner, what we do is we know that young couples, when they have a baby and they lose that baby, they can't afford a funeral. So we partnered with funeral homes all across America to give those families a free funeral. And then we have quilters that make quilts that we can wrap one of those babies in, and a companion quilt that goes home with that mother. I tell you this because I'm a compassionate person. I am not a politician. I'm a guy that's here to serve you. That's what I've done my entire life in the United States Navy, and that's what I'll continue doing, because I believe in people. I believe in families. I believe in doing what's right. It's time for us to stand together as a community, to work together and to stop putting others before us. And that's what a lot of our politicians have done. It's time for change to put you first. Thank you.
Mr. Lee, we'll begin questions with you.
Okay.
All right. When was the first time you voted in a Republican primary?
Oh my gosh, probably about 38 years ago. I can still remember, after voting that primary, how proud I was to vote in a real Republican, Ronald Reagan. And I remember how proud I was when he stood there on Inauguration Day and they swore him in. And how proud I was when the Iranians released the hostages, knowing that we had a real president now. God willing, we're going to get another good, sound, solid Republican president here in the very near future. And I hope again we show the Iranians who went and captured my fellow sailors and held them prisoner. I hope that we will have a president that will once again put America first. Once again will show the world that we are somebody, that we mean business, that we are the liberators of the world, and the world is covered with American blood. Show us a little bit of appreciation. Thank you.
Mr. Simpson.
I've always voted in a Republican primary. I believe that may have been in the first time in 1984. I tried to verify that. It could have been in 1988. But I know in the early 90s, there when I lived in the little town of Avenger there in Cass County. I'm not afraid, though, to work with anybody. I'm a constitutional conservative Republican. When Republicans leave the Constitution, they can leave me. I'm willing to stand alone, even if the Republican Party does what is wrong. The Constitution is to limit government to its proper role, which is simply to punish the wrongdoer and then to get out of the way. I believe in big individuals, big families, big churches, and small civil government. And we need people that will stand up in the legislature and shine a light on leadership and on their colleagues to stop nonsense, to stop unconstitutional procedures. And I've done that again and again, even when I've had to do it alone. One of my great privileges, my first session, was to kill the chair's bill of the local consent calendar. Not once, but twice. And that was difficult. But the blessing, at the end of the session, we worked together, and she passed my bill on her amendment to repeal the tax on gold and silver. I am a Republican, but I believe my oath and the Constitution comes first. And I will continue to support that, whether it's popular or not.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Burnham.
The first election that I participated in a major way was when I was a senior at Texas A&M University, and that too was the election of Ronald Reagan, when inflation was out of control, interest rates were out of control, defense spending was at an all-time low, and I was about to go into the military. So we saw the effects of that. We saw the effects of a conservative Republican who entered office. I still remember the fact that Mr. Reagan supported the largest raise for the military in recent history. As I was a young lieutenant, he was the benefactor of that raise. I remember the economy as it grew. I remember listening to Phil Graham, who was a professor at Texas A&M University, and talked about the things that would happen when Republicans got in and we lowered taxes. And we were able to increase our economy, and the economy began to grow, and the interest rate began to drop, and we saw the effects of conservative economics and conservative leadership. So throughout my life, I've been a conservative Republican that supported those values that we hold so dear, and I intend to do that until the day that the good Lord calls me home. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, we'll continue with you, if that's all right.
That's absolutely wonderful.
Well, state your position on the use of medical marijuana and the overall decriminalization of marijuana use in Texas.
I am adamantly opposed to the legalization of marijuana in any shape, form, or fashion. And anyone that says anything different that I say that is absolutely a liar. I believe that we have a process by which we can put medical elements, God-provided medical elements into practice by going through a process that has been tried and true over and over and over. I believe that the utilization of marijuana in any form is a gateway drug to narcotics. My father's a state trooper, my brother's a state trooper, I was a reserve police officer, and I've seen the effects of drugs. I've seen the effects of drugs on our youth in school as a school board member for 9 years, and I know that it is bad for absolutely bad for our society. Marijuana should not be legalized in the state of Texas in any form. Look at what has happened in Colorado. Look at what has happened in the states who have developed liberal medical marijuana policies, and you will see that they are having difficulty in administering them as they are presented, but also the effects of those. I know that there are absolutely passionate parents who believe that medical marijuana may be the answer to their children. And I believe those parents should have the option to look for things in exploratory ways as they are presented in accordance with law, but not on their own, but in accordance with law. The medical marijuana oil law that was passed, in my opinion, is a very good bill that has allowed them to do that. But in the end of the day, we have to adhere to the principles of medical research as it applies to all of our citizens. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Simpson, state your position on the use of medical marijuana and the overall decriminalization of marijuana use in Texas.
I support medicinal marijuana, and I support the decriminalization of marijuana, along with my colleague, Representative Bryan Hughes. We both voted for the medical bill that General Brown just referred to, and we both co-authored House Bill 507. Marijuana, its usage has been banned in the state of Texas for about 100 years. We have not studied it. We've not really utilized the plant that God gave us for good. I know this issue is very personal and emotional because hardly any family has not been affected by drug abuse. However, the abuse of that plant should not take away from law-abiding citizens the opportunity to use it to heal and to deal with epilepsy, Crohn's disease, cancer. We have 22 veterans a day killing themselves, and if that can be helped to deal with PTSD, I think they should be allowed to do it. And I don't think we should put people in prison unless they harm their neighbor. We have laws to deal with cough syrup and all kinds of things that if you use and are drowsy and you drive impaired, to deal with those harms that you cause to others. But we should not put people in prison unless they harm their neighbor. We should give them the gospel. We should invite them over for dinner and give them help. We should take them to church. I do support the responsible use of marijuana medicinally, and I've never partaken of it. I've never been drunk by the grace of God, never touched marijuana. But I do believe God made the plant for good, and we can use it responsibly. Proverbs 23:21 says, "The drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty.
Thank you.
But drowsiness will clothe a man with rags." He didn't ban them.
Thank you.
He warned us against their use.
Mr. Lee, state your position on the use of medical marijuana and the overall decriminalization of marijuana use in Texas.
Adamantly against it. And I was adamantly against it before my good friend Red was, I'm sure. I've been out since they voted. That was just a joke, Red. I'm not picking on you, okay? When they first voted that, I went out and I started all over the district speaking out against it. Let me tell you why. As you found out, I own a funeral home. I've had multiple cases where I've had young people in my funeral home. One young girl not long ago, smoking a joint going down the road. She left the road, hit the trees, broke every bone in her body. So I had to sit with the families and say, okay, you can't view your daughter. She broke every bone in her body. It is a gateway drug. We know that. And we know that our young people are going to continue, they're going to use it. We've got to stop them. We've got to be the adults here and say no. Because scientists have told us that up from age 25 to 27, their brains haven't even developed the ability to make those critical thinking decisions yet. I'm against the marijuana. There are ways when we can have medical organizations, pharmaceutical companies make something that we could give to people if they need that. But I think by decriminalizing, what it does is it puts our youth at risk. And I respect David for at least talking about what he believes. We disagree with this, but we are friends, we disagree on it. But where I have a problem is our friend Bryan. Bryan sat on the same committee with him, voted for House Bill 507, sided with 35 Democrats. But since that time, and it's become unpopular, Bryan has looked thousands of you voters in the face and said, no way, no shade, no form. That's wrong. As much as I disagree with the marijuana, I really disagree with a politician who will look you in the face, and we're friends, but tell you something completely different than the truth. Thank you.
Mr. Lee, we'll continue with you.
We do that every time.
Yeah. State funding for schools is already a sizable portion of the state budget, and both in and Medicaid are expected to increase. How will these increases be funded? Please be specific.
I think there's only one way. I'm looking at the budget, and you know what? I've been a substitute teacher. I've worked in the medical facilities and nursing homes because I'm an audioprosthologist. I do hearing aids. We've got a limited amount of money. I want to say something in a way that I know everybody in here can understand, because you know what? We live out in rural areas. There are only so many eggs in the basket. The hens can only lay so many eggs. If you need more eggs, you need more hens. Economic development is the key here. If we need more money for the schools, and I've been a substitute teacher in Queen City ISD, if you need more money, we need more tax revenue. Think about one of the things that we do. We raise amazing kids. We give them a great moral upbringing. And then the schools educate them very well, I might add. And then what do we do with them? We export them to Dallas, to Little Rock, to Austin, because there's no jobs. We've got to have jobs. The kids go off. Who's our tax base? It's our senior citizens. That's our tax base, and they're dying off. I own a funeral home. We've got to replace that tax base, and the only way to do it is to bring in businesses, because there is a trickle down. You bring in those businesses, then your timber's going to boom, okay? You've got to cut down the wood. You've got to mill it. You've got carpenters you're going to put to work. You're going to put concrete layers to work. Electricians, you know the routine. We're going to put people to work. They need houses. All of those people we put to work will need houses to live in. Then when we build all that, those people are going to be paying taxes. They're going to shop in our businesses. They're going to pay taxes yet again. If you need more eggs, you've got to have more hens. We've got to have economic development, and any politician that promises and promises, and I've seen a lot of that, I can promise you just as much and 50% more, but you're not going to get it from me either. You've got to have economic development, and that's how we're going to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Simpson. Again, state funding for schools is already a sizable portion of the state budget, and both in and Medicaid are expected to increase. How will these increases be funded, and please be specific?
In the latest biennium for education, including higher ed and K through 12, that was 37% of the budget, or $78 billion. Health and Human Services was 36.9%, or $77 billion. Together, that comprises 74% of our budget for all funds. That kind of spending cannot continue. Health and Human Services funding is primarily driven by chasing federal dollars. Once we chose to participate in Medicaid, the feds determined the qualifications for the recipients. If you qualify, we have to provide the services without any ability to require personal responsibility. We need to first prioritize funding by first giving a priority to constitutional and core government responsibilities. Schools are a constitutional responsibility. They should be funded at the local level, at the state level, but controlled at the local level by parents, teachers, and school board members. Core functions of government, criminal justice, the judiciary, public safety, and public transportation should also be a funding priority. Medicaid is optional, and it is fraught with fraud. We should stop chasing federal funds. We should realize that this responsibility ultimately needs to be returned to individuals, families, and churches. And I do support a program whereby we could take this on as a state with the goal of returning it to individuals. But we need to get rid of corporate welfare and things that are not required by the Constitution or core functions of government.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Brown? Same question to you.
I believe that the funding of our public schools, where we currently fund at 45th out of 50 states in per capita funding for our schools, is an investment in the future of Texas. Within this district alone, we began this year with over 200 vacancies for teachers in this Senate district alone, because we don't pay our teachers adequately and we don't provide the necessary things for them to enhance that most important career. I want to tell you that we got to look at what we do, because we create unfunded requirements within the legislature, and there are many of those that we impose on schools. And I too believe in local control of schools. I believe as a school board member and a school board president, a member for 9 years and president of the school board for 6 years, that we were accountable to the people within our district, and the superintendent was accountable to us, and that we should have had local control and more local control to establish the curriculum, the way that we would do business, and the things that we would do within that school district. And we did not need the state in our business each and every day. And I want to tell you that if we don't fund those schools, and we'll talk maybe about these voucher programs, but if we don't fund those schools, it will affect the future of this great state. I recently read on a book when I was coming home from North Carolina, if our economy continues as it is, in about 30 years, we'll have the 4th largest economy in the world from Texas, because we're growing at that rate. 1,000 people a day. We will have the economy, we will have the jobs. We are poised in East Texas for greatness with the resources that we have, and with those resources, the jobs will come to East Texas, and we will fund our schools. The other thing that we must do is look at a fair tax system, and that fair tax system being moving to a consumption tax versus a property tax.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. If you would remain up there, we'll do one more.
Okay, I'm going to do this one more time.
That's right. Do you support a voucher system or tax relief for parents who choose to send their children to private or home schools? State your reasons why or why not.
I'm adamantly opposed to any tax voucher system or voucher system for public schools. There are 5.6 million children in the state of Texas. 5.1 million of them are in public schools. As I said, an investment in public schools is an investment in the future of Texas. I am passionate about how you educate your child. You have the right to put them in private school, you have the right to homeschool them, and you have the right to put them in the public schools. I believe that if we have a problem with a public school, we need to, through local control, we need to fix that problem. I do not believe that any tax dollar should be provided to a private school for anything. I believe that your money should be put into the public school, and we should fund public schools accordingly. And if you want to go to private school, I'm all for it, but you should be responsible to pay for it. I have this tax credit. Nevada just passed a bill. Their own lieutenant governor applauded, and that bill was found unconstitutional on January the 12th in Nevada, Senate Bill 302. I don't believe in the tax credit system. I believe in public schools. I believe in local control. And I believe that we should continue to fix them, make them better, and invest in the future of Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Senator Preston, to you.
I do not believe in support vouchers where you take money from the people through taxes and then redistribute it. I do believe that the state should recognize, at least in some circumstances, where people are already doing the job of education and grant them a credit. I believe that parents should be empowered to educate their children, whether in a public, private, or a home school. God made us free and responsible in His image, and He made us as parents to temporarily to guide, direct, and educate our children. They are not the states, they are parents. But our forefathers did provide for a means by which parents who would not do that would do that through the public system. And I support that. It's a constitutional requirement. It protects our liberties and the rights of the people. And in 2011, when we had a budget crunch and we're going to have another one, I fought really hard to see that the misplaced priorities in the budget were exposed and to move the money to constitutional priorities, including our community colleges. And we should not be waiting for the courts to fix the inequitable and inadequate system that has been complained about. We need the legislature to stand up and to do what is right and support constitutional funding, adequate and equitable funding in public schools.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Lee, school vouchers.
Let me first of all say, my priority is to make sure that the school system, as a substitute teacher, is funded properly. It's got to be funded properly. When I talked a while ago about economic development, the key part of that, you can't have economic development without an educated workforce. Now, there has to be, in my belief, some system. We've got to fund education properly. But let's not lose sight of something here. Everybody in this room, including the guys that stand up and scream, hey, you got to give the schools all the money and you can't touch it. Whose money is it? It's my money. And if I want to take a little bit of that money and take my child to a private school because my school may be failing me, how dare you tell me I don't have that right? It's my money. And the same people that just said what they said will point the finger at Washington and say, oh, you're mismanaging my money. That's my tax dollars. I want to fund the school properly because I think they're important. But don't tell me if you're failing me that I have no recourse. I have a right to get some of my money back. Now, what I would rather see, if you can believe it, California did something that was absolutely amazing. When I was in the Navy there, what they did is I took my kids and I put them in homeschooling. But the school controlled the homeschool. So they gave me the books, they gave me everything I needed, and I was able to still put my kids into sports at school. If they wanted to play football, band, they got to be a part of that. And the school got to keep the money. So we didn't rape the school for the money. I got to teach my kids. I taught them my morals at home. It was a great system. I would rather see that. But I got to tell you, there has to be a system to protect you, the family. If the school is failing you, there has to be a recourse for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike Lee.